Light glinted off the hull of Nylara's Hermes-class fighter as it banked sharply through the upper atmosphere of Terrace 3. The vibrant orange skin of her hands contrasted against the dark control panel as she gripped the navigation yoke tighter, her 4 fingers tensing with practiced precision. A barrage of enemy fire streaked past her viewport, illuminating the cockpit in flashes of crimson and violet. "Guardian Squadron, maintain formation Delta," she commanded through her neural interface, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around her. "Drelock forces are pushing toward the southern hemisphere. We cannot allow them to establish a foothold." Through the swirling clouds below, Nylara could see the vast, deep blue oceans of Terrace 3 stretching endlessly. The Athetheran Empire had held this strategic planet for 3 cycles, mining its rare mineral deposits and maintaining a crucial refueling station for their fleet. The Drelocks had been relentless in their attempts to claim it. A proximity alarm shrieked as 3 Drelock fighters emerged from a bank of ionized clouds directly above her position. "Evasive maneuvers," she ordered, pulling her craft into a steep dive. Her squadron scattered, their formation breaking apart as energy beams lanced through the space they had occupied moments before. Nylara's fighter shuddered as she pushed it beyond recommended atmospheric entry speeds, the hull heating rapidly. She could feel the gravitational forces pressing against her body as she pulled out of the dive, skimming mere hundreds of meters above the churning ocean surface. 2 Drelock fighters followed, their weapons charging for another volley. "Come closer," she muttered, her pupils contracting to thin slits as she prepared her countermeasure. With a practiced motion, she cut the main thrusters and executed a half-roll, bringing her weapons to bear on the pursuing craft. Her targeting system locked onto the lead Drelock fighter, and she unleashed a burst of concentrated energy. The first enemy ship erupted in a brilliant explosion, its fragments raining down into the ocean below. The second veered off, but not before Nylara's secondary targeting array had acquired it. She fired again, her shots grazing the enemy vessel's engine housing. "Guardian 6, your left flank is exposed," came a warning through her neural link. Too late. A blinding flash of light filled her cockpit as an energy beam from a third, unseen Drelock fighter struck her ship's port side. Alarms blared as systems failed in rapid succession. The control panel sparked and smoked, and Nylara felt a searing pain as shrapnel tore through her flight suit, embedding itself in her side. "Guardian 6 is hit," she reported, her voice tense but composed as she fought to stabilize her dying craft. "Systems critical. Primary engine offline. Secondary power failing." The fighter began its inevitable descent toward the ocean below, trailing smoke and debris. Nylara knew what awaited her. As the ship plummeted, she closed her inner eyelids momentarily, a gesture of acceptance among her people. "Guardian 6, can you eject?" came a concerned voice over the comm. Nylara's mandibles clicked once in resignation, though none could see the gesture. "Negative. Ejection system damaged. Impact with ocean imminent." She paused, then added with solemn pride, "It has been an honor to serve the Athetheran Empire. May my death bring glory to our people." There was no fear in her heart as the fighter plunged toward the churning waters. To die in battle was the highest honor an Athetheran warrior could achieve. She had served faithfully for 20 cycles, had led her squadron through countless engagements. This was a worthy end. The impact was violent, metal screaming as it met water at terminal velocity. The cockpit shattered, and frigid ocean water rushed in, enveloping Nylara in its cold embrace. Pain lanced through her body as the pressure crushed against her injured side. Her armor, designed for combat in space and atmosphere, now worked against her, dragging her deeper into the dark abyss. As consciousness began to fade, Nylara felt an unexpected peace. The sounds of battle above grew distant, replaced by the muffled silence of the deep. Her body drifted downward, suspended in the blue void, orange blood trailing from her wounds like thin ribbons of silk. "This is the warrior's path," she thought. This is the honorable end. Her vision darkened at the edges as oxygen deprivation set in. In her final moments, she thought of her home world, the twin suns rising over the crystal spires of Athethera Prime, the sacred halls where she had taken her warrior's oath so many cycles ago. Then, through the darkening waters, a light appeared. At first, Nylara thought it was the legendary passage of warriors, the final vision said to guide Athetheran souls to their eternal rest. But the light grew brighter, more focused, mechanical. A spotlight. Something was approaching through the water, a vessel of unfamiliar design, smaller than a standard military craft, with sleek lines and what appeared to be medical insignia emblazoned on its hull. No, thought Nylara with sudden alarm. I have earned my warrior's death. Do not take this from me. But the vessel drew closer, and mechanical arms extended from its hull, as they wrapped around her battered body, pulling her from her destined grave. Nylara's last conscious thought was one of unexpected anguish. The honorable death has been denied me. What shame is this? Then darkness claimed her entirely. Antiseptic. That was the first scent that reached Nylara's consciousness as she drifted back from the void. Sharp, clean, and utterly foreign to her sensory organs. Her inner eyelids fluttered open, revealing a stark white ceiling illuminated by pale blue lights. Pain followed awareness, a throbbing ache in her side where the shrapnel had torn through flesh and bone, a burning sensation along her spine, and the dull pressure of what felt like regenerative bandages across much of her torso. She was alive. The realization struck her with a mixture of confusion and dismay. Ah, you're awake. That's good. I was beginning to worry the cerebral oxygenation treatment wasn't taking. The voice came from somewhere to her right, speaking in the common galactic trade language, but with an accent Nylara recognized immediately. Human. A chill ran through her that had nothing to do with her injuries. With considerable effort, she turned her head toward the voice. A human male stood beside what she now recognized as a medical birth. He was of average height for his species, with close-cropped dark hair flecked with premature gray, and eyes the color of Terrace 3's sky. He wore a simple utility jumpsuit with what appeared to be medical insignia, not military, but civilian. You've been unconscious for nearly 36 hours, the human continued, checking a holographic display hovering above her berth. 3 fractured vertebrae, multiple lacerations, significant internal bleeding, and a punctured lung. Not to mention the effects of prolonged submersion in cold ocean water. He offered what his species would consider a reassuring smile. You're quite the survivor. Nylara's voice emerged as a rasp, her vocal membranes still recovering from the saltwater exposure. You denied me my warrior's death. The human's expression shifted, the smile fading. I pulled you from a crashed fighter that was sinking to the bottom of an alien ocean. Where I come from, that's called saving your life. It was not your right, Nylara replied, her tone hardening despite her weakened state. I am Nylaranth, guardian of the Sixth Fleet, defender of the Athetheran Empire. I had accepted the warrior's path to its honorable conclusion. The human sighed, adjusting something on the medical equipment. I'm Elliot Drake, former combat medic, Earth Alliance, currently independent contractor, and I make it a policy not to let anyone die if I can help it, regardless of their species or whether they've accepted death. He emphasized the word with a gesture Nylara didn't recognize. Call it a human weakness. Nylara attempted to sit up, but pain lanced through her body, forcing her back down onto the berth. You do not understand our ways. To die in battle is the greatest honor. Is getting better than dying in most cultures I've encountered, Elliot interrupted. And right now, you need to focus on healing. The regenerative treatments are working, but you've got a long way to go. He reached for a container nearby, pouring clear liquid into a cup. Water? You must be dehydrated. Nylara turned her face away. I will not accept sustenance from the one who stole my honor. Elliot set the cup down with a sharp click. Listen, I didn't risk my ship and my life pulling you out of that ocean just to watch you die of stubbornness on my medical berth. Your honor, or whatever you want to call it, isn't worth your life. Before Nylara could respond, an alarm began to sound throughout the small vessel. A red light pulsed from a console on the far wall. Proximity alert, Elliot muttered, striding quickly to the console. That's not good. He tapped several controls, bringing up a holographic display. Nylara could see from her position that it showed a larger vessel approaching their position. Drelock patrol vessel, she identified immediately, recognizing the distinctive silhouette. They are scanning for survivors. Elliot's expression darkened. They're scanning for you. You mean? He ran a hand through his hair. My ship's stealth systems can mask our presence for a while, but not indefinitely against a military-grade scanner. Nylara felt a complex mix of emotions. Part of her, the warrior part, almost welcomed the approach of the enemy. If the Drelocks found this vessel, they would certainly destroy it, granting her the death she had been denied. Yet another part, one she was less comfortable acknowledging, recoiled at the thought of this human dying because he had tried to save her. You should not have interfered, she said finally. Now your life is also in danger. Well, it's a bit late for that observation, Elliot replied, fingers dancing across the control panel. We need options, fast. This medical transport isn't built for combat. Despite her injuries and her cultural beliefs, Nylara found herself analyzing the tactical situation. The Drelock vessel. What class is it? Hoplite class patrol ship, according to my scanner. Heavily armed, crew of about 20. Nylara's military training took over. They will be using a standard search pattern, focusing on energy signatures and metallic debris. Your vessel. What capabilities does it have? Elliot glanced at her, surprise evident on his face. The Nomad. She's a modified Hermes-class medical transport. Basic stealth systems, enhanced life support, medical facilities. Engines decent, not military grade, but respectable. Why? If we descend further into Terrace 3's atmosphere, we might be able to use the ionization layers to mask our signature, Nylara suggested, her tactical mind racing. The radiation would interfere with their scanners. That could work, Elliot nodded. But the atmospheric pressure at those depths would put serious strain on the Nomad's hull. Less strain than Drelock weapons fire, Nylara countered. A ghost of a smile crossed Elliot's face. Fair point. He moved to what Nylara presumed was the pilot station. But there's another problem. If we descend too quickly, they'll spot our engine flare. Nylara considered this. Can you simulate a reactor malfunction? The signature would appear similar to debris from my fighter, potentially drawing their attention elsewhere while we make our descent. Elliot looked at her with newfound respect. I can rig the external sensors to emit a radiation pattern consistent with a failing power core. His fingers moved across the controls with practiced efficiency. It won't fool them for long, but it might buy us enough time. As he worked, Nylara felt an unexpected wave of exhaustion wash over her. The tactical discussion had drained what little energy her healing body had mustered. Yet, there was also a strange satisfaction in applying her military expertise, even from a position of weakness. Simulation active, Elliot announced. Now for the tricky part. He took the manual controls, and Nylara felt the slight shift as the Nomad began to descend. On the view screen, she could see the swirling cloud layers of Terrace 3 growing closer. They've taken the bait, Elliot reported, watching the scanner. They're moving toward the false signature. But they've launched probe drones as well. Standard procedure for debris investigation. The probes will have more sensitive detection equipment, Nylara warned. We need to reach the ionosphere quickly. The ship shuddered as it accelerated its descent, the external temperature rising as they plunged into the thicker atmosphere. Elliot's hands remained steady on the controls, but Nylara could see the tension in his posture. "Warning! Hull integrity at 87%, announced an automated voice from the ship's computer. "Just a little deeper," Elliot muttered, more to himself than to Nylara. The view screen now showed nothing but swirling clouds, occasional flashes of lightning illuminating the turbulent descent. The ship bucked and shook, fighting against the increasingly dense atmosphere. "There!" Nylara pointed to a reading on the scanner. "The ionization layer begins approximately 3 kilometers below our current position." Elliot nodded, adjusting their trajectory. "Hull integrity at 74%. It'll hold." Just as the Nomad began to level off within the ionization layer, a proximity alarm sounded again. "One of the probe drones," Elliot confirmed grimly. "It followed us down." Nylara struggled to sit up, ignoring the pain flaring through her body. "It will transmit our location to the patrol ship." Elliot's expression hardened. "Not if I can help it." He executed a series of rapid maneuvers, taking the Nomad into a dense bank of storm clouds. Lightning flashed around them, the electrical discharges creating a natural interference pattern. "Hull integrity at 68%, the computer warned. "Come on, you glorified ambulance," Elliot muttered to his ship. "Just a little longer." On the scanner, Nylara could see the probe drone still in pursuit, though its signal appeared to be fluctuating due to the interference from the storm. "There," she pointed to the navigation display. "That canyon system on the surface. If we can reach it, the rock formations will provide additional cover." Elliot glanced at the coordinates. "That's cutting it close to the mining outpost. Civilian operation. The Draylocks will not risk attacking a civilian installation without confirmation of our presence," Nylara assured him. "It provides tactical advantage." With a nod, Elliot adjusted their course, taking the Nomad into a steep descent toward the canyon system. The ship groaned under the strain, but held together as they broke through the lowest cloud layer, revealing the rugged landscape of Terrace 3's surface. The canyon opened before them, a jagged wound in the planet's crust. Elliot guided the ship into its depths with remarkable skill, navigating the narrow passages at speeds that bordered on reckless. "The probe?" Nylara asked, her gaze fixed on the scanner. "Still following, but having trouble maintaining lock through the canyon walls," Elliot replied. "We need to lose it completely before it can transmit our position." Nylara's tactical mind raced. "The mineral composition of these canyons? It contains significant quantities of magnetite, does it not?" Elliot nodded. "Among other things. Terrace 3 is a mining hub for rare earth elements." "Then we can use that," Nylara said. "If you have any external deflectors, even medical scanners would suffice. We could direct a focused pulse at one of the canyon walls. The magnetite would amplify the signal, creating a false echo that might confuse the probe's tracking systems." Elliot's eyes widened slightly. "That's actually brilliant." He quickly reconfigured the ship's external medical scanner array. "Ready on your mark." "There." Nylara pointed to a particularly narrow section of the canyon ahead. "The geological formation will naturally channel and amplify the signal." As they approached the designated point, Elliot activated the modified scanner array. A barely visible pulse of energy struck the canyon wall, reflecting and refracting through the mineral-rich rock. The effect was immediate. On the scanner display, dozens of false contacts appeared, creating a confusing echo pattern that effectively masked their true position. "It's working," Elliot confirmed. "The probe is losing track of us." He guided the Nomad through a series of tight turns, descending deeper into the canyon system until they emerged into a wider basin. Ahead, nestled against the canyon wall, stood the mining outpost, a collection of prefabricated modules and equipment, with several small landing pads visible. "Mining Station Terrace 3B," Elliot identified. "Independent operation, primarily human and Vespian workforce." He glanced at Nylara. "I know the station director. He owes me a favor." Nylara nodded weakly, her brief surge of energy fading as the pain of her injuries reasserted itself. The probe? Elliot checked the scanner once more. Lost in the echo pattern. It'll eventually report back to the patrol ship, but without a definitive location. He guided the Nomad toward one of the smaller, more secluded landing pads. We should be safe here, at least for a while. As the ship settled onto the landing pad, Elliot powered down the main systems, leaving only essential life support and medical equipment online to minimize their energy signature. I need to speak with the station director, he said, rising from the pilot's seat. Will you be all right for a few minutes? Nylara met his gaze, her expression unreadable to human eyes. I am a guardian of the Ethethran Empire. I have endured far worse than lying in a medical berth. Elliot seemed about to say something, then simply nodded. I won't be long. Try to rest. As he exited the medical bay, Nylara closed her inner eyelids, not in acceptance of death this time, but in contemplation of her situation. The human had saved her life, an act she had initially viewed as a violation of her warrior's code. Yet, he had also demonstrated considerable skill and courage in evading the Dreylock patrol. Most puzzling of all, he had listened to her tactical suggestions, implementing them without hesitation despite her status as both an alien and, technically, an enemy. The Earth Alliance and the Ethethran Empire were not openly hostile, but neither were they allies. Perhaps, Nylara thought as exhaustion once again claimed her. There is more to understand about humans than our military briefings suggest. When Nylara next awoke, the quality of light in the medical bay had changed. The harsh, white illumination had been dimmed, creating a more restful environment. Her pain had subsided to a dull ache, suggesting that additional treatment had been administered while she slept. Elliot sat at a small workstation nearby, studying what appeared to be medical readouts. He looked up as she stirred. Welcome back, he said. You've been asleep for about 4 hours. How do you feel? Nylara conducted a quick internal assessment. The pain is manageable. My respiratory function appears improved. The regenerative therapy is working better than expected, Elliot confirmed. Your species has remarkable healing capabilities when given the right support. He approached the berth, holding a handheld scanner. May I? After a moment's hesitation, Nylara nodded. As he passed the device over her torso, she asked, The Dreylock Patrol? Still searching, but they've moved to a different sector, Elliot replied. My contact at the mining station, Director Harding, has agreed to shelter us temporarily. He's reporting business as usual to any official inquiries. This director risks much by harboring us, Nylara observed. Elliot's expression softened slightly. I saved his daughter's life during the Proxima conflict. Severe plasma burns. He said he'd repay the debt someday. He set the scanner aside. Looks like someday is today. A silence fell between them, broken only by the soft hum of the medical equipment. Finally, Nylara spoke. I must know. Why did you save me? We are not allies. My death would have been of no consequence to you. Elliot considered her question, his gaze steady. Would you have left someone to die if you could have saved them? If they were Dreylock, yes, Nylara answered without hesitation. They are the enemy of my people. And if they were neither ally nor enemy, just another sentient being? Nylara's mandibles clicked once, a gesture of uncertainty. Our ways teach that all lives are bound to their own paths. To interfere with another's destined end is to dishonor them. Elliot leaned against the edge of the workstation. Humans have a different perspective. Most of us believe that saving a life is never the wrong choice. Even when that life belongs to one who has accepted death? Nylara challenged. Especially then, Elliot said quietly. Because sometimes what we accept isn't what we truly want or need. Before Nylara could formulate a response, an alarm sounded, different from the proximity alert they had heard earlier. Elliot was instantly alert, moving to the communication console. That's the mining station's emergency channel. He activated the display, revealing the weathered face of an older human male. Harding, what's happening? Drelok's scout ships, the station director reported tersely. 3 of them. Just entered the canyon system. They're conducting a grid search pattern. Elliot's expression darkened. They must have analyzed the probe data more thoroughly than we anticipated. How long until they reach the outpost? Nilara asked, forcing herself to sit up despite the pain. Harding glanced at something off-screen. 20 minutes, maybe less. I've ordered all non-essential personnel to quarters, citing a potential atmospheric disturbance. But that won't fool them if they conduct a detailed scan. We need to leave, Elliot stated, drawing them away from the outpost. Harding shook his head. The main canyon is already being patrolled. They'd spot you immediately. Nylara's tactical mind engaged once again. The secondary canyon network, the one your miners use for equipment transport, does it connect to the eastern ridge? Harding looked surprised. Yes, though it's narrower and more treacherous. Not meant for vessels larger than mining skiffs. The Nomad is approximately the same size as a standard mining skiff, Elliot noted, catching Nylara's line of thinking. If we could reach the eastern ridge, we might be able to use the magnetic interference from the mineral deposits to mask our signature long enough to break atmosphere. It's risky, Harding warned. Those passages weren't designed for the speed you'd need to outrun Drelok scouts. We don't need to outrun them, Nylara interjected. Only to redirect them. She turned to Elliot. Does your vessel carry any deployable drones or beacons? Basic medical drones, Elliot confirmed. 3 of them, short range, but programmable. And reflective paneling, Nylara continued. Standard equipment for emergency landing sites. Elliot nodded slowly, understanding dawning. We could configure the drones to carry reflective panels, creating false signatures to draw the scouts away. While we take the mining passage to the eastern ridge, Nylara finished. Harding looked between them, then nodded firmly. I'll provide you with the exact route through the mining passages, and I'll have my people create some additional distractions. Maintenance checks on the outer facilities, power fluctuations. Nothing suspicious, but enough to divide their attention. Thank you, Elliot said sincerely. As Harding's image disappeared from the screen, Elliot turned to Nylara. You should be resting, not planning tactical maneuvers. There will be time for rest when we have evaded capture, she replied. With visible effort, she swung her legs over the edge of the medical berth. I can assist with the drone programming? Elliot looked as though he wanted to object, but seemed to recognize the determination in her posture. All right, but you stay seated. I'll handle the physical preparations. For the next 15 minutes, they worked in efficient tandem. Nylara, despite her injuries, demonstrated a keen understanding of Drelok search protocols, helping to program the medical drones with movement patterns that would appear convincing to the scout's sensors. Elliot modified the reflective paneling to enhance its signature return, creating the illusion of a larger vessel. The mining passage route has been transmitted to your navigation system. Harding's voice reported over the comm. Scout ships are now 10 minutes out. We're ready, Elliot confirmed, securing the last of the modified drones. He glanced at Nylara, who had insisted on moving to the co-pilot seat despite her condition. Are you sure about this? The passage will be rough. I am a guardian of the 6th Fleet, Nylara reminded him, her voice steady despite the pain evident in her posture. I have flown through asteroid fields under enemy fire. This is a medical transport, not a fighter, Elliot pointed out. Then it is fortunate you have a fighter pilot as your co-pilot, Nylara responded, with what might have been the Athetheran equivalent of grim humor. Elliot powered up the Nomad's engines, keeping them at minimal output to avoid detection. As the ship lifted gently from the landing pad, he deployed the first of the modified drones, sending it on a pre-programmed course toward the Western Canyon. First diversion away, he reported. Second and third will deploy automatically at 30-second intervals. The Nomad slipped silently away from the mining outpost, hugging the shadow of the canyon wall as it approached the narrow entrance to the mining passage. Elliot's hands were steady on the controls, but Nylara could sense the tension in his movements. "Incoming transmission from Harding," announced the ship's computer. "Put it through," Elliot instructed. "Draylock scouts have detected the first drone," Harding reported. "2 ships are diverting to investigate. The third is continuing toward the outpost." "As expected," Nylara noted. "Standard Draylock protocol is to maintain at least 1 unit on the primary search vector, while others investigate anomalies." The entrance to the mining passage loomed before them, a jagged gash in the canyon wall, barely wide enough to accommodate the Nomad's hull. Elliot reduced speed, carefully aligning the ship with the narrow opening. "Second drone has been detected," Harding updated. "Third scout ship is now diverting." "All 3 diverted? That's not standard protocol." Nylara frowned. "Maybe we got lucky," Elliot suggested, easing the Nomad into the mining passage. The tunnel engulfed them, dim emergency lighting along the walls, providing just enough illumination to navigate by. The passage twisted and turned, following natural fault lines in the planet's crust. Elliot guided the ship with impressive precision, maintaining minimal clearance on either side. "They've discovered the drones." Harding's voice came through, tight with tension. "All 3 scouts are returning to search pattern. ETA to mining passage entrance. 3 minutes. "So much for luck," Elliot muttered, increasing their speed. The Nomad protested, its hull scraping occasionally against the rough walls of the passage. "There is a wider chamber ahead," Nylara noted, studying the navigation display. "Used for equipment staging. We could deploy the third drone there, programmed to emit a more convincing signature." Elliot nodded, pushing the Nomad to its limits as they approached the chamber. As they emerged into the relatively spacious area, he quickly set the final drone's parameters. "This one will mimic a damaged engine signature," he explained, consistent with a vessel that crashed further into the passage. The drone deployed, hovering in the chamber as the Nomad continued through the narrower passage on the far side. "Draylock scouts are entering the mining passage," Harding reported. "They've detected the new signature." Nylara studied the tactical display. The passage narrows significantly 2 kilometers ahead, then widens again near the eastern ridge. The scouts will be forced to proceed single file through the narrowest section. "Which gives us an opportunity," Elliot realized. "Harding, do your miners use explosive charges for excavation?" "Of course," the station director confirmed. "Standard mining procedures." "Are there any charges currently placed in the narrow section of the passage?" There was a brief pause. 2 sets, prepared for tomorrow's scheduled expansion work. "Can they be detonated remotely?" Nylara caught Elliot's strategy immediately. "If we can trigger a controlled collapse behind us..." "The scouts would be trapped on this side of the passage," Elliot finished. "At least, temporarily." "It would mean cutting off our own escape route," Harding pointed out. "We're not planning to return that way," Elliot assured him. "Once we reach the eastern ridge, we'll make for orbit." After a moment's consideration, Harding agreed. "I'll have the charges prepared for remote detonation, transmitting the trigger codes to your system now." As they approached the narrowest section of the passage, Nylara could see the strain beginning to show on Elliot's face. The Nomad shuddered and groaned as it squeezed through the tight confines, its hull scraping audibly against the rock walls. "Hull integrity at 53%, the computer warned. "Just a little further," Elliot encouraged his vessel, as though it could hear him. The passage began to widen again, and Elliot exhaled in relief. "We're through the narrows. How far behind are the scouts?" "The lead scout has just reached the staging chamber," Harding reported. "They've discovered the drone. The other 2 are close behind." "Optimal detonation point in 30 seconds, Nylara calculated, monitoring the scout's progress. Elliot nodded, his finger hovering over the detonation control. As the countdown reached 0, he pressed the trigger without hesitation. The explosion was distant, but powerful, reverberating through the passage. On the scanner, they could see the narrowest section of the tunnel collapse in a cascade of falling rock and debris. Direct hit, Nylara confirmed. The passage is completely sealed. Dreylock scouts are trapped on the far side, Harding added. Their communications indicate they're attempting to blast their way through, but it will take them hours. The Nomad emerged from the mining passage onto the eastern ridge, a high plateau overlooking a vast expanse of Terrace 3's rugged landscape. Without the canyon walls to restrict them, Elliot immediately increased their speed, angling the ship upward toward the atmosphere. "Thank you, Harding," Elliot transmitted. "We're clear of the mining complex. You should disavow any knowledge of our presence if questioned. Already prepared my statement about unauthorized use of mining explosives by person or persons unknown." Harding replied with a hint of satisfaction. "Good luck, both of you." As the Nomad climbed higher, Nylara monitored the long-range scanner. No pursuit craft detected. The main Dreylock patrol vessel appears to be maintaining its search pattern over the primary canyon system. Elliot nodded, but his expression remained tense. "We're not in the clear yet. Once we break atmosphere, they'll detect our engine signature." "Unless we time our ascent to coincide with the planet's magnetic pole," Nylara suggested. "The natural radiation would mask our emergence." "The northern pole is currently experiencing a geomagnetic storm," Elliot noted, checking the atmospheric data. "That would provide even better cover." He adjusted their course, pushing the Nomad to its maximum atmospheric speed. As they raced toward the pole, the ship began to encounter increasing turbulence. The sky darkened, and brilliant auroras danced across the view screen, curtains of green and blue energy, beautiful yet potentially deadly to navigation systems. "Hull integrity at 48%, the computer warned. "Radiation levels increasing." "Rerouting power to the radiation shields," Elliot responded, his hands flying across the controls. "Navigational systems switching to passive mode to avoid disruption." Nylara watched as he piloted the ship with remarkable skill for a non-military operator, using the magnetic field lines to guide their ascent rather than fighting against them. "Approaching atmospheric boundary," she reported. "Dreylock patrol still shows no sign of detection." The Nomad shuddered violently as it pushed through the final layers of Terrace 3's atmosphere, the hull creaking under the strain. Then, suddenly, they were in space, the blackness stretching before them, punctuated by distant stars. "We've cleared the atmosphere," Elliot confirmed, his voice tight with concentration. "Maintaining minimal power signature. The magnetic interference should keep us masked for the next few minutes." "Long enough to plot a hyperspace jump," Nylara noted. "Though I suspect your vessel's hyperspace capabilities are limited." "Enough for a short jump," Elliot confirmed. "The question is, where to?" It was a question Nylara hadn't fully considered until that moment. As a guardian of the Athetheran Empire, her duty would be to request transport to the nearest Imperial outpost. Yet that would mean separation from the human who had saved her life, and potentially his arrest as an unauthorized interloper in an active combat zone. More troublingly, it would mean returning to a life she had already accepted the end of. The warrior's path had led her to the depths of Terrace 3's ocean, to an honorable death she had been prepared for. What path lay before her now? "I know a place," Elliot said, breaking into her thoughts. "A trading post orbiting Vidian's second moon, neutral territory, frequented by independent operators and those looking to avoid official attention. The Vidian system is 3 sectors away," Nylara pointed out, "beyond your vessel's hyperspace range." "We can make it in 2 jumps," Elliot replied. "There's a navigational waypoint in the Corvin system we can use to recalibrate." As he spoke, the proximity alert sounded once more, this time with greater urgency. "Multiple vessels emerging from hyperspace," Nylara reported, reading the scanner. Drelock signatures? Heavy cruiser class. Elliot's expression hardened. They called for reinforcements. They must consider your capture a high priority. The tactics of the Guardian squadrons are highly valued intelligence, Nylara explained. And I have participated in the planning of several major offensives. Then we need to move quickly, Elliot decided, plotting the hyperspace coordinates. Jumping in 3, 2, 1. The stars stretched into lines of light as the Nomad entered hyperspace, leaving Terrace 3 and the pursuing Drelock forces behind. For the moment, at least, they were safe. In the artificial calm of hyperspace, Nylara finally gave in to the exhaustion and pain her body had been fighting. As her consciousness faded once more, she found herself contemplating the strange twist of fate that had bound her to this human healer, a man who had denied her an honorable death, yet possibly offered her something more valuable, a new purpose. The hyperspace journey passed in a blur of pain medication and healing trances for Nylara. Elliot had insisted on continuing her treatment, despite the limited resources aboard the Nomad. By the time they dropped out of hyperspace at the Corvin waypoint, she was able to sit up without assistance and move short distances within the ship. "How are you feeling?" Elliot asked, as he recalibrated the navigation system for their second jump. "Functional," Nylara replied, her gaze fixed on the starfield, visible through the view screen. "Your medical techniques are effective, if unorthodox by Imperial standards. I've had to adapt conventional treatments for various species over the years," Elliot explained. "Working in conflict zones means you rarely have species-specific medical supplies on hand." Nylara studied him with renewed interest. "You mentioned you were a combat medic with the Earth Alliance. What caused you to become an independent operator?" Elliot's hands paused briefly over the controls. Difference of opinion with Alliance leadership regarding medical priorities during the Proxima conflict. His tone suggested there was more to the story, but he didn't elaborate. "And now you travel alone, providing medical assistance where needed." "Something like that," he nodded, resuming his work on the navigation system. The Nomad was decommissioned after the conflict. Alliance was going to scrap her. I liberated her instead. "You stole a military vessel." Nylara's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Technically, she was already stripped of military designations, Elliot corrected with a slight smile. "But yes, I suppose I did. Seemed a fair trade for 5 years of patching up soldiers so they could go back into battle." Before Nylara could respond, the ship's computer announced, "Navigation recalibration complete. Hyperspace coordinates verified." "Ready for the second jump?" Elliot asked. Nylara nodded, settling more securely in her seat. As the stars once again stretched into streaks of light, she found herself pondering the human's words. The concept of liberating a vessel, of choosing one's own path, rather than following orders without question, was foreign to her military upbringing. Yet, there was something compelling about his independence. The second hyperspace journey was shorter, and when they emerged, the view screen revealed a spectacular sight. A small, cratered moon, orbiting a gas giant with swirling bands of purple and gold. In orbit around the moon was a collection of interconnected structures, the trading post Elliot had mentioned. Vidian Trading Post, he identified. Officially registered as a refueling and repair station for independent merchants. Unofficially, it's a neutral ground for, let's call them people with complicated allegiances. "Smugglers and deserters," Nylara translated bluntly. "Some," Elliot acknowledged. "Also refugees, political dissidents, and those who simply want to live outside the conflicts between the major powers." He guided the Nomad toward the station. "Not everyone believes in fighting endless wars." Nylara felt a flicker of indignation at the implied criticism. "The conflict between the Athetheran Empire and the Drelock hegemony is not meaningless. It is a matter of survival." "Is it?" Elliot asked quietly. "Or has it become self-perpetuating? A conflict that continues because both sides believe it must. Before Nylara could formulate a response, the communication system activated. Unidentified vessel. This is Vidian Trading Post Control. Please identify and state your purpose. Vidian Control. This is Medical Transport Nomad. Elliot responded, requesting docking clearance for repairs and medical supplies. Authorization code. Drake 79 Echo. There was a brief pause before the controller replied. Authorization confirmed. Proceed to Docking Bay 12, East Quadrant. Welcome back, Dr. Drake. As Elliot guided the Nomad toward the designated docking bay, Nylara observed, They know you here. I've made a few visits, he confirmed. Helped with a viral outbreak in their residential section last year. The station administrator was grateful. The Nomad eased into the docking bay, a cavernous space currently occupied by several other small vessels of various designs. As the docking clamps engaged and the ship powered down, Elliot turned to Nylara. We should be safe here for the time being. The station maintains strict neutrality, and the administrators don't ask too many questions as long as you don't cause trouble. What is your plan? Nylara asked directly. Elliot considered the question. First, proper medical facilities for you. The station has an excellent clinic. Then repairs for the Nomad. She took a beating in that canyon. He hesitated before adding, After that, I suppose it depends on what you want to do. What I want, Nylara repeated, as though the concept was unfamiliar. Yes, Elliot said simply. You're no longer in immediate danger. Your injuries are healing. Soon you'll be able to make your own decisions about where to go next. The notion was strangely unsettling. Before the crash, Nylara's path had been clear. Serve the Empire, fight the Draylocks, and eventually die with honor in battle. Now, having been denied that end, the future seemed suddenly uncertain. I should report to the nearest Imperial outpost, she said finally, though with less conviction than she might have expected. If that's what you choose, Elliot nodded. Though I should warn you, the nearest Imperial outpost is in the Centauri sector, which would mean traveling through 2 Draylock-controlled trade routes. You would transport me there? Nylara asked, surprised. If that's where you want to go, Elliot confirmed. Though I'd need to make some modifications to the Nomad's stealth systems first. Before their conversation could continue, a mechanical sound indicated that the docking bay had been pressurized and the external hatch was opening. A moment later, a woman entered the bay and approached the Nomad. She was human, older than Elliot, with silver hair cropped short and sharp features that suggested a life of hardship. She wore utilitarian clothing with a station administrator's insignia, and her posture spoke of military training. Elliot Drake, she called as Elliot emerged from the Nomad. Trouble follows you like a shadow, I see. Hello, Elena, Elliot greeted her with a genuine smile. Is it that obvious? Your ship looks like it flew through a rock crusher, Elena observed dryly. And my sensors detected Athetheran life signs aboard. Her gaze shifted to where Nylara now stood in the Nomad's hatchway. Interesting company you're keeping these days. Elena Christensen. This is Nylara, formerly of the Athetheran Guardian Squadron. Elliot introduced Nylara. Elena is the station administrator and an old colleague. Former Earth Alliance intelligence, Elena clarified, studying Nylara with calculating eyes. Now I maintain this little haven of neutrality. Her attention returned to Elliot. Draylock communication channels are buzzing with alerts about a missing Athetheran officer and a stolen medical transport. Would you know anything about that? It wasn't stolen, Elliot protested. I've owned the Nomad for years. And the Athetheran officer, Elena pressed, was critically injured and would have died without intervention. Elliot replied evenly. I made a medical decision. Elena sighed. You and your medical decisions, they always seem to coincide with interstellar incidents. Despite her words, There was a fondness in her tone. She turned to Nylara. "No offense intended, Guardian. I'm simply accustomed to Elliot's pattern of trouble." "None taken," Nylara responded formally. "I understand the complications my presence creates for your station." "Well, what's done is done," Elena said pragmatically. "You're here now, and the Vidian trading post doesn't turn away those in need. But I suggest keeping a low profile. We may be neutral territory, but we still get the occasional Drelock merchant passing through." "We'll be discreet," Elliot promised. "Nylara needs proper medical attention, and the Nomad needs repairs." Elena nodded. "I'll arrange both. In the meantime, I've allocated quarters for you in the restricted section of the residential ring. Fewer prying eyes there." She handed Elliot a data chip. "Access codes and location details." As Elena turned to leave, she paused, looking back at them. "One more thing. There's a matter I'd like to discuss with both of you once you're settled. Something that might interest an Athetheran Guardian and a former Alliance medic with a conscience." With that cryptic remark, she departed, leaving Elliot and Nylara exchanging curious glances. "What do you think she meant?" Nylara asked. With Elena, "It could be anything," Elliot replied. "But whatever it is, it's bound to be complicated." He gestured toward the exit. "Come on, let's get you to the medical center." As they made their way through the station's corridors, Nylara was struck by the diversity of its inhabitants. Species from across the galaxy moved about their business. Some she recognized, others entirely unfamiliar. What united them, it seemed, was a desire to exist outside the conflicts that dominated interstellar politics. The medical center was surprisingly well equipped for a frontier station, with technology that rivaled Imperial facilities. The medical staff, a mixture of humans and Vespians, showed no surprise at treating an Athetheran warrior, suggesting that Elena's commitment to neutrality was more than mere words. After a thorough examination and several regenerative treatments, Nylara was declared stable enough to rest in the quarters Elena had provided. The room was simple but comfortable, designed with consideration for non-human physiology. As she settled onto the sleeping platform, adjusting it to accommodate her species' preference for firm surfaces, Nylara found her thoughts turning to Elena's mysterious reference. What matter could possibly be of interest to both her and Elliot? And why did she feel a growing sense that her path forward was about to become even more complicated than it already was? Sleep claimed her before she could pursue these questions further, her healing body demanding rest despite the uncertainty surrounding her future. Nylara awoke to a gentle chime from the room's communication system. The chronometer indicated she had slept for nearly 12 hours, longer than she had intended, but evidently needed for her continuing recovery. "Guardian Nylara," came Elena's voice through the speaker. "If you're awake, please join us in the secure conference room. Level 3, Section 7. Elliot is already here." Curiosity piqued. Nylara rose and prepared herself as best she could. Her Imperial uniform had been damaged beyond repair, but someone, likely Elliot, had provided a set of civilian clothing suitable for her physiology. The simple tunic and fitted pants felt strange after cycles of wearing military attire, but they were practical and unobtrusive, ideal for maintaining the low profile Elena had suggested. Following the station's internal guidance system, Nylara made her way to the designated conference room. The door slid open at her approach, revealing a Spartan space dominated by a large table. Elliot and Elena were already present, along with two others, a Vespian female whose iridescent exoskeleton marked her as a mature scholar, and a being Nylara recognized with surprise as a Drelock, though not in military uniform. Nylara tensed instinctively at the sight of the Drelock, her warrior training asserting itself despite her injuries. "Peace, Guardian," Elena said quickly, noting her reaction. "Researcher Kral is here under the same neutral protection as yourself, No hostilities are permitted within this station. The Draylock, Kral, inclined his head slightly, the bony ridges of his face catching the light. I offer no threat, Athetherin. My days of military service ended long ago. With effort, Nilara relaxed her stance, though she remained wary as she took a seat beside Elliot, positioning herself to keep the Draylock in view. Thank you for joining us, Elena began formally. I've called this meeting because recent information has come to my attention that concerns all parties represented here. She activated a holographic display in the center of the table. What I'm about to share is classified and potentially dangerous, but I believe you all have a right to know. The hologram showed a complex network of financial transactions, shipping manifests, and communication logs. Nilara didn't immediately grasp their significance, but Elena continued her explanation. For the past 3 cycles, I've been tracking an anomalous pattern of weapons development and distribution throughout the sectors involved in the Athetherin-Draylock conflict. What I've discovered is troubling. She manipulated the hologram, highlighting specific nodes in the network. These are shell corporations and dummy accounts linked to a conglomerate known as the Earth Consortium, ostensibly a civilian industrial group, but with deep ties to the Earth Alliance military-industrial complex. Elliot leaned forward, his expression darkening. I've heard rumors about the consortium. They were implicated in war profiteering during the Proxima conflict, but nothing was ever proven. Because they're exceptionally good at covering their tracks, Elena confirmed. But not perfect. She expanded a section of the hologram. These records show the consortium has been simultaneously developing and selling advanced weapons technology to both the Athetherin Empire and the Draylock hegemony. Nilara's mandibles clicked in disbelief. That's not possible. Imperial military procurement is strictly controlled. All weapon systems are developed internally or through vetted allies. So the Empire believes, the Vespian scholar interjected, her voice resonating with the characteristic harmonic overtones of her species. But trace the supply chain of components for your A7 plasma cannons or K-series shield generators, and you'll find they originate from consortium subsidiaries, operating under different names in different sectors. The same is true for Draylock weaponry, Kral added. Our most advanced targeting systems and hull-penetrating munitions can be traced back to the same source, though this connection is hidden from military leadership. Elena nodded grimly. The consortium has been deliberately prolonging your conflict by ensuring that neither side gains a decisive technological advantage. When one side begins to prevail, the other mysteriously receives an innovation that restores the balance. Why? Nilara demanded. What purpose does this serve? Profit, Elliot stated flatly. Endless war means endless demand for weapons, replacement parts, medical supplies. More than that, Elena continued, it creates dependency. Both empires have unknowingly become reliant on consortium technology. If either discovered the truth and attempted to sever ties, the consortium could cripple their military capabilities. Nilara sat back, struggling to process this information. Everything she had fought for, the comrades she had lost, the death she had been prepared to embrace, all potentially manipulated by unseen human profiteers. You have evidence of this? She asked finally, her voice tight with controlled emotion. Substantial, Elena confirmed, transferring a data packet to the table's built-in terminals. Financial records, intercepted communications, technical schematics showing identical base components in supposedly enemy weapon systems. Most damningly, recorded meetings between consortium executives discussing how to, quote, maintain optimal conflict duration for maximum return on investment. Nilara downloaded the data to a personal device provided by Elena, quickly scanning through the files. The evidence was comprehensive and damning. Images of consortium representatives meeting secretly with both Imperial and Draylock procurement officials. Technical specifications proving shared origins of supposedly distinct weapons platforms. financial projections based on continued conflict. "This cannot be allowed to continue," she stated, a cold anger building within her. "The Empire must be informed." "As must the hegemony," Krall agreed, surprising Nylara with his alignment with her position. "That's why I've gathered you here," Elena explained. "Each of you represents a potential pathway to your respective leaderships. As a guardian, Nylara has direct access to Imperial High Command. Krall, despite his current non-military status, maintains connections with senior hegemony officials." "And what of my role in this?" the Vespian scholar inquired, her compound eyes reflecting the holographic display. "Your species is respected by both sides for its neutrality and scholarly integrity," Elena replied. "Your validation of the evidence would lend crucial credibility." "And me?" Elliot asked quietly. Elena's expression softened slightly. "You, old friend, have a unique talent for getting into and out of impossible situations. And you've already demonstrated a willingness to cross boundaries others won't." Nylara looked at the human who had saved her life, seeing him in a new light. Perhaps his rescue of an enemy combatant hadn't been merely medical instinct, but part of a deeper ethical stance against the forces perpetuating their conflict. "What are you proposing?" Nylara asked, returning her attention to Elena. "A coordinated revelation," the station administrator replied. "Simultaneous presentation of this evidence to the Athetheran High Command and the Drelok Hegemony Council. Not through official channels that could be monitored or blocked by consortium agents, but directly, in person." "The risk would be extreme," Krall observed, "for all involved." "Greater than the risk of allowing this manipulation to continue?" Elena challenged. A silence fell over the room as each considered the implications. For Nylara, the decision was complex. Her oath as a guardian bound her to protect the Empire and obey its hierarchy of command. Yet, if that very hierarchy had been compromised, unknowingly serving the interests of profiteers who extended the war and the suffering of her people. "I will take this evidence to the Imperial High Command," she declared finally. "My status as a guardian who was presumed lost in battle may provide a unique opportunity to bypass normal protocols." Krall nodded slowly. "And I will do the same with my contacts in the hegemony, though I cannot promise the reception will be welcoming." "I will authenticate the technical and financial data," the Vespian scholar agreed. "My analysis will provide independent verification that neither side can easily dismiss." All eyes turned to Elliot, who had remained uncharacteristically quiet during the exchange. He met Nylara's gaze, and she saw a complex mix of emotions in his expression. "The Nomad is almost repaired," he said finally. "She's not built for this kind of mission, but she's survived worse. If you're determined to do this, I'll get you where you need to go." Elena nodded, satisfaction evident in her posture. "Then we begin preparations immediately. The consortium has agents everywhere, including possibly on this station. Time is not our ally." As the meeting concluded and they dispersed to prepare, Elliot fell into step beside Nylara in the corridor. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. "You could request transfer to an Imperial vessel, return to your life as a guardian, leave this fight to others." Nylara considered his words carefully before responding. "When you pulled me from the ocean of Terrace 3, I believed you had stolen my honorable death. Now I understand you may have given me something far more valuable, the chance to truly serve my people, not by dying in manipulated conflict, but by helping to end it." Elliot studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "For what it's worth, I think you're making the right choice, though I'd be lying if I said it wasn't also the most dangerous one." "The warrior's path is rarely safe," Nylara replied, with what might have been the ghost of humor. "But it seems you are accustomed to danger yourself, healer." "Dr. Drake, trouble magnet," Elliot confirmed with a wry smile. According to Elena, at least. As they continued toward the docking bay to prepare the Nomad, Nylara found herself reflecting on the strange journey that had brought her here. From the depths of an alien ocean to the precipice of a mission that could reshape the conflict that had defined her life. And, at the center of it all, this human who had refused to let her die, a decision that might ultimately save countless lives across two empires. Perhaps, she thought, there was more than one form of honor, more than one way to serve, and perhaps the path forward, uncertain though it was, offered greater purpose than the one she had left behind in the waters of Terrace 3. The preparation for their mission proceeded with quiet urgency. Under Elena's direction, the station's technical team completed the repairs to the Nomad, while also implementing several critical modifications. Stealth systems were enhanced, communication arrays reconfigured to bypass standard monitoring channels, and defensive capabilities upgraded as much as the vessel's civilian frame would allow. Nylara spent her time studying the evidence Elena had compiled, committing key details to memory in case the physical data was lost or destroyed. The more she learned about the consortium's manipulation, the more her resolve hardened. The realization that her squadron, her friends and comrades, had died using weapons deliberately designed to maintain stalemate rather than achieve victory filled her with cold fury. Elliot, meanwhile, focused on practical preparations. He stocked the Nomad with medical supplies, emergency rations, and the various specialized equipment their mission might require. Nylara noticed that he worked with methodical efficiency, his earlier carefree demeanor replaced by the focused discipline of a veteran field operative. On the evening before their planned departure, Nylara found Elliot in one of the station's observation lounges, staring out at the gas giant Vidian and its swirling storms. The purple and gold bands of the planet's atmosphere reflected in his eyes as he turned to acknowledge her approach. "I thought you'd be resting," he said. "Tomorrow will be challenging." "As will the days that follow," Nylara responded, moving to stand beside him at the viewport. "I find my thoughts too active for rest." Elliot nodded in understanding. "Second thoughts?" "No," she replied without hesitation. "But contemplations, about paths chosen and abandoned." "Philosophical for a warrior," Elliot observed, though his tone held no mockery. "Even warriors must sometimes consider the purpose behind their battles," Nylara said. "Perhaps especially warriors." She turned slightly to face him more directly. "I have been meaning to ask you something." "I'm an open book," Elliot responded, the familiar hint of humor returning briefly to his expression. "When we first met, when you pulled me from the ocean, you said it was your policy not to let anyone die if you could help it." Nylara's gaze was steady, searching. "Yet, now you risk your life to expose the consortium. These seem like different imperatives." Elliot was quiet for a moment, considering her observation. "Not as different as they might appear," he finally replied. "Both come from the same place, a belief that life shouldn't be thrown away needlessly, whether it's one warrior in an ocean or thousands of soldiers in a manipulated war. And yet our mission may cost lives," Nylara pointed out. "The consortium will not surrender its profitable arrangement without resistance." "That's the paradox of healing sometimes," Elliot acknowledged, his gaze returning to the swirling storms of Vidian. "To heal a body, you might have to cause pain, cutting out infection, setting broken bones. To heal these empires, to stop the bleeding of endless war, there may be no painless solution." Nylara found wisdom in his words, a perspective she hadn't considered during her cycles of military service. In the Guardian Corps, we are taught that sacrifice is noble, that dying for the Empire brings honor. I believed this without question. "And now," Elliot asked softly, "now I wonder if true honor lies not in how we die, but in what we live for." She gestured toward the datapad containing Elena's evidence. "If we succeed, if both empires learn they have been manipulated and find a path to peace, that seems a cause worth surviving for." A smile, genuine and warm, spread across Elliot's face. For a warrior presumed dead, you've developed quite an interest in living. Perhaps I had a transformative experience, Nylara replied, with what Elliot had come to recognize as her version of dry humor. Their moment of connection was interrupted by Elena's arrival. The station administrator's expression was grim as she approached. "We have a problem," she announced without preamble. "One of my security officers just intercepted a transmission. Consortium agents are on their way to the station. They know you're here." "How?" Elliot demanded. "The station's communications are supposed to be secure." "They have sources everywhere," Elena replied tersely, "including, apparently, among my staff. The transmission contained details about the Nomad's repairs and your planned departure." "Then we leave now," Nylara stated decisively, "before they arrive." Elena shook her head. "Too late for that. Long-range sensors indicate a vessel on approach, Consortium security ship, heavily armed. They'll intercept any departing craft. The station's defensive systems," Elliot began, "would be no match for their firepower." Elena cut him off. "And I won't risk the lives of everyone aboard this station in a direct confrontation." "Then we need an alternative strategy," Nylara stated, her tactical mind engaging. "If we cannot leave, and we cannot fight directly, we can send the evidence without us," Elliot suggested. "Use the station's communication array to broadcast the data to both empires simultaneously." Elena's expression darkened further. "The consortium vessel is equipped with advanced signal jamming technology. Standard communications would be blocked the moment they detected the transmission." "What about non-standard communications?" Nylara asked, an idea forming. "The mining equipment on Terrace 3 used narrow-band quantum entanglement for remote operations in areas with heavy mineral interference. Does the station have similar technology?" Elena's eyes widened slightly. "We do maintain a limited quantum comm array for emergency communications with distant outposts. It's not powerful enough for a general broadcast, but it could transmit to specific, pre-designated receivers," Elliot finished, catching Nylara's line of thinking. "If we could get the data to even one senior official in each empire, it could work," Elena acknowledged. "But we'd need the exact quantum frequency codes for receivers within both the Imperial High Command and the Hegemony Council. Without those specific coordinates, we'd be transmitting into the void." Nylara straightened, her posture reflecting her renewed sense of purpose. "As a guardian of the Sixth Fleet, I was entrusted with emergency protocols, including secure communication frequencies for the High Command in case of catastrophic fleet action." "And Kral might have similar access for the hegemony," Elliot added. "It's still risky," Elena cautioned. "Quantum transmissions are secure, but brief. We'd have only moments to transmit the data before the system requires recalibration, and there's no guarantee anyone will be monitoring those emergency frequencies." "It's our best option," Nylara insisted, "and it keeps the station and its inhabitants out of direct conflict." Elena nodded slowly. "I'll contact Kral and have the quantum array prepared. In the meantime, you two should proceed to the Nomad and prepare for immediate departure once the transmission is complete." "They'll still be waiting for us," Elliot pointed out. "Yes," Elena agreed with a grim smile. "But they'll be waiting for a medical transport trying to slip away, not for the data transmission they're actually here to prevent. Sometimes, the best diversion is the obvious one." Understanding dawned on Nylara. "We become the decoy while the real mission, the data transmission, proceeds undetected." "Precisely," Elena confirmed. "Now go. We don't have much time." As they hurried toward the docking bay, Elliot glanced at Nylara. "You realize this plan essentially volunteers us as targets." "Is that not what you've been since you pulled me from that ocean?" Nylara responded, her stride purposeful, despite her still healing injuries. "Besides, I am a guardian of the Ethetheran Empire. Drawing enemy fire is part of the job description." Elliot's laugh was short but genuine. When you put it that way, how can I argue? The Nomad was ready for departure, its systems humming with quiet efficiency as they boarded. Elliot moved immediately to the pilot station, beginning the pre-launch sequence, while Nylara established a secure communication link with Elena. Kral has provided the hegemony emergency frequencies, Elena reported. The quantum array is being aligned now. Transmission will commence in approximately 15 minutes. Understood, Nylara acknowledged. The Nomad will be ready to launch on your signal. As they completed their preparations, Nylara felt a strange calm settle over her. The mission had changed. Their chances of survival had diminished. Yet she found herself more centered, more certain of her purpose than she had been, even as a dedicated guardian. If this works, Elliot said quietly, as he finished the launch calculations, it could change everything. The war, the balance of power. Worlds that have known nothing but conflict for generations might finally see peace. And if it doesn't, Nylara replied, we will have tried. That seems honor enough. Elliot turned to her, his expression serious. Whatever happens out there, I want you to know something. Pulling you from that ocean, it wasn't just medical protocol or human stubbornness. From the moment I saw your fighter go down, I felt, I don't know, a connection, like our paths were meant to cross. Nylara's mandibles moved in the subtle expression that Elliot had come to recognize as thoughtful consideration. In Athetheran philosophy, there is a concept called na-sheri, the convergence of destinies. It is said that sometimes, souls that can change the course of history are drawn together by forces beyond their understanding. Na-sheri, Elliot repeated, the unfamiliar word rolling carefully off his tongue. I like that, though I doubt either of us expected our convergence of destinies would lead to us becoming decoys for a desperate data transmission while being hunted by corporate mercenaries. The paths of destiny are rarely predictable, Nylara observed, with what might have been the Athetheran equivalent of a smile. Their moment was interrupted by Elena's voice over the comm. Consortium vessel has docked at the upper bay. Their security team is disembarking now. Quantum transmission will commence in 3 minutes. Be prepared to launch immediately after confirmation of successful transmission. Acknowledged, Elliot responded, his hands hovering over the launch controls. All systems ready. The minutes passed with agonizing slowness, the tension building as they waited for Elena's signal. Nylara found herself mentally reciting the ancient warrior's meditation of her people, not in preparation for death this time, but in steeling herself for the mission ahead. Quantum transmission complete, Elena's voice finally announced. Data successfully transferred to both Imperial and Hegemony emergency channels. Confirmation of receipt from Imperial side. Hegemony status unclear. That's our cue, Elliot said, activating the launch sequence. The Nomad's engines hummed to life, the docking clamps disengaged, and the ship began to move slowly out of the bay. Consortium security team is moving toward your position, Elena warned. They've detected your launch. Station defense systems are creating interference to buy you time, but it won't last long. Thank you, Elena, Elliot replied, for everything. Just survive, came her terse response. Both of you. As the Nomad cleared the docking bay and accelerated away from the station, the tactical display lit up with a warning. Consortium vessel disengaging from Upper Bay, Nylara reported. They're pursuing. As expected. Elliot nodded grimly. Now we just need to keep them occupied long enough for that transmission to reach the right people. The Nomad accelerated to full speed, heading away from the station into open space. Behind them, the larger and more powerful consortium vessel gave chase, rapidly closing the distance. They're hailing us, Nylara noted, as the communication system signaled an incoming transmission. Let's hear what they have to say, Elliot decided, activating the receiver, but not the transmitter, allowing them to listen without responding. Medical Transport Nomad. This is Consortium Security Vessel Adjudicator, came a cold, professional voice. You are carrying classified information and a fugitive of interest. Power down and prepare to be boarded. This is your only warning. Elliot deactivated the receiver and glanced at Nylara. Charming. They didn't even specify which of us is the fugitive. Likely both, Nylara observed dryly. Tactical assessment. Their vessel outguns and outpaces the Nomad in every respect. Direct confrontation or extended pursuit is not viable. Agreed, Elliot confirmed, his hands dancing across the navigation controls. But we don't need to escape them permanently. Just keep them focused on us long enough for the data to reach the right people and be acted upon. The Nomad shuddered as a warning shot from the adjudicator passed close to their starboard side. Their patience appears limited, Nylara noted, studying the tactical display. The Vidian system has an extensive asteroid field in the outer orbit. If we can reach it, we might be able to evade them long enough to plot a hyperspace jump. Elliot finished, already adjusting their course. Good thinking. The Nomad veered sharply, accelerating toward the distant band of asteroids circling the outer reaches of the system. The adjudicator followed, firing another warning shot that came even closer than the first. They're done with warnings, Elliot observed tensely. Next one will be meant to disable us. Nylara moved to the weapon station, her hands hovering over the controls. The Nomad's defensive capabilities are minimal, but we might be able to deploy countermeasures to confuse their targeting systems. Do it, Elliot agreed, pushing the engines beyond their recommended output. We need every advantage we can get. As the adjudicator prepared to fire again, Nylara activated a burst of electromagnetic chaff, a cloud of metallic particles that temporarily disrupted sensor readings. The pursuing vessel's shot went wide, giving the Nomad precious seconds to increase its lead. Asteroid field approaching, Elliot announced. This is going to get rough. The field loomed before them, a chaotic maze of tumbling rocks ranging from the size of small shuttles to massive, city-sized boulders. Under normal circumstances, navigating such a hazard would require careful, measured movement. With the adjudicator in pursuit, however, caution was a luxury they couldn't afford. They're launching intercept drones, Nylara warned, watching 4 small, fast-moving objects detach from the larger vessel. Designed to disable engines and weapon systems. Can you target them with the medical lasers? Elliot asked, executing a series of evasive maneuvers as they entered the asteroid field. The targeting system isn't designed for combat, Nylara replied, quickly recalibrating the equipment. But I can modify the parameters. As Elliot guided the Nomad through the asteroid field with remarkable skill, Nylara converted the ship's medical lasers, normally used for precision surgical procedures, into makeshift defensive weapons. Their power was limited, but focused enough to potentially disable the smaller drones. The first drone approached rapidly from behind, weaving through the asteroids with programmed efficiency. Nylara waited until it was within optimal range, then fired. The laser struck the drone's sensor array, causing it to veer off course and collide with a nearby asteroid. 1 down, she reported. 3 remaining. Elliot executed a tight turn around a larger asteroid, using its mass to temporarily shield them from the adjudicator's sensors. The field gets denser ahead. We might be able to lose them in the central cluster. The Nomad plunged deeper into the field, navigating passages barely wider than the ship itself. Behind them, the adjudicator was forced to reduce speed, its larger size a disadvantage in the tight confines of the asteroid field. They're falling behind, Nylara observed, but the drones are still in pursuit. 2 more drones appeared on their flanks, attempting to box the Nomad in. Nylara targeted one with the modified laser, scoring a direct hit on its propulsion system. The disabled drone tumbled away, bouncing harmlessly off the surrounding asteroids. The third drone, however, managed to evade her targeting and attached itself to the Nomad's hull near the engine housing. "Hull breach detected in Sector 7, the ship's computer announced. "Sealing compartment." "It's trying to access our engine controls," Elliot reported grimly. "If it succeeds, we'll be dead in space." Nylara made a quick decision. "I'll deal with it. Maintain our course." Before Elliot could protest, she was moving toward the equipment locker, retrieving an emergency vacuum suit and a surgical cutting tool. Her injuries protested the sudden movement, but she pushed the pain aside with practiced discipline. "What are you doing?" Elliot demanded, dividing his attention between piloting and watching her preparations. "External intervention," Nylara replied simply, sealing the suit. "The drone is on the outer hull. It must be removed before it completes its intrusion." "That's insane," Elliot objected. "We're in the middle of an asteroid field, under fire, and you're still recovering from major injuries." "Which is precisely why you must continue piloting," Nylara countered. "Your skills at the controls exceed mine. This is the logical division of labor." Before he could argue further, she moved to the small airlock near the cargo bay. "Open a channel to my suit communications," she instructed. "I'll need your guidance to locate the drone once I'm outside." Elliot's expression was a complex mixture of admiration and exasperation. "Fine, but be careful. If anything goes wrong—" "It won't," Nylara interrupted with calm assurance. "This is what Guardians are trained for." The airlock cycled, and Nylara found herself on the outer hull of the Nomad, magnetic boots securing her as the ship continued its twisting path through the asteroid field. The vastness of space surrounded her, punctuated by the looming shapes of asteroids passing with alarming proximity. "The drone is 3 meters to your right, near the secondary thruster housing," Elliot's voice guided through her comm. "It's already breached the outer housing and is accessing the control circuits." Nylara moved carefully along the hull, the surgical cutting tool held firmly in her grasp. As she approached, she could see the drone, a compact, insect-like device with multiple appendages currently buried in the Nomad systems. "I have visual," she reported, beginning extraction. With precise movements, she began severing the drone's connections to the ship's systems. The device sensed her presence and attempted to defend itself, one of its appendages lashing out toward her. Nylara evaded the attack with practiced grace, then used the momentum to position herself for a decisive strike at the drone's central processing unit. The cutting tool sliced through the drone's protective casing, exposing its delicate internal components. With one final, precise movement, Nylara disabled the device completely. "Drone neutralized," she reported, carefully detaching it from the hull. "No further damage to engine systems detected." "Good work," Elliot replied, relief evident in his voice. "Now get back inside before—" His warning was cut short as the Nomad lurched violently, nearly dislodging Nylara from her position. Through her helmet, she could see the cause. The adjudicator had fired a concentrated energy burst that had struck a nearby asteroid, shattering it into countless fragments that now hurtled toward them. "Brace for impact," Elliot shouted over the comm. Nylara secured her grip on a hull fixture as the Nomad executed a series of desperate evasive maneuvers. Fragments of the shattered asteroid bounced off the ship's hull, some large enough to cause concerning vibrations through the structure. Using the momentary chaos as cover, Nylara made her way back to the airlock, the disabled drone still clutched in one hand. As the outer door sealed behind her and the chamber repressurized, she allowed herself a moment of grudging respect for the consortium's tactics. Using the asteroid as a weapon had been a clever move, one she might have employed herself in similar circumstances. When she returned to the bridge, Elliot was navigating through an increasingly dense section of the asteroid field, his concentration absolute as he guided the Nomad through gaps that seemed impossibly narrow. "Hull integrity at 62%, the computer reported. "Multiple minor breaches detected in outer plating." "The adjudicator?" Nylara asked, securing the captured drone for later analysis. "Still in pursuit. but they've fallen back to a safer distance, Elliot replied, without taking his eyes from the navigation controls. The debris field from that shattered asteroid forced them to reduce speed. We've gained some time, but not much. Nylara moved to the tactical station, studying their position within the asteroid field. There's a particularly dense cluster ahead. If we can reach the far side, it might provide enough cover for a hyperspace jump. That's assuming the hyperdrive hasn't been damaged, Elliot noted grimly. And that we can find a clear exit vector. One problem at a time, Nylara responded, her tone calm despite the tension of their situation. Focus on reaching the cluster. As they penetrated deeper into the heart of the asteroid field, the space between objects narrowed alarmingly. Elliot's piloting skills were pushed to their limits as he navigated the treacherous path, occasionally grazing smaller asteroids when no clear route existed. Hull integrity at 57%, the computer updated. Hyperdrive functionality at 83%. Still operational, Elliot confirmed, a note of grim satisfaction in his voice. If we can find a clear vector— Incoming! Nylara interrupted. The tactical display showing multiple energy signatures approaching from the direction of the adjudicator. Seeker missiles, Elliot identified, executing a sharp dive beneath a tumbling asteroid. They'll track our energy signature through the field. Remaining countermeasures deployed, Nylara reported, activating the last of their defensive options. A cloud of electromagnetic particles spread behind them, temporarily obscuring their signature. Two of the missiles lost tracking and detonated harmlessly against nearby asteroids. The third, however, maintained its lock and continued its pursuit. We need to break its tracking, Elliot stated, scanning the field ahead for options. There, that fissure in the large asteroid at bearing 275. It's just wide enough for the Nomad, but too narrow for the missile to navigate. With practiced precision, he directed the ship toward the indicated asteroid, a massive, irregular body rotating slowly in space. A deep crack ran across its surface, creating a narrow canyon that passed completely through its center. Approaching fissure entry, Elliot announced, reducing speed slightly to ensure accurate alignment. This is going to be tight. The Nomad slipped into the narrow passage, its hull scraping against the rocky walls as Elliot guided it through with utmost concentration. Behind them, the missile attempted to follow, but detonated upon impact with the narrowest section, sending a shockwave through the asteroid that threatened to collapse the passage entirely. Accelerating to clear the exit before structural failure, Elliot declared, pushing the engines to maximum output. The Nomad shot forward through the destabilizing tunnel, emerging from the far side just as the passage began to collapse behind them. The explosion and subsequent destruction of the fissure created a debris field that temporarily blocked the adjudicator's pursuit, giving them a crucial moment of respite. Scanning for clear hyperspace vector, Nylara reported, quickly analyzing the space beyond the asteroid cluster. Potential path detected at coordinates 187, Mark 42. Plotting course, Elliot confirmed, entering the coordinates. Hyperdrive charging, 30 seconds to jump capability. On the tactical display, they could see the adjudicator beginning to navigate around the debris field, still determined in its pursuit. 20 seconds to hyperspace capability, the computer announced. They're launching more Seeker missiles, Nylara warned, watching 3 new energy signatures detach from the pursuing vessel. 10 seconds. The missiles accelerated toward them, quickly closing the distance. 5 seconds. Brace for jump, Elliot instructed, his hand hovering over the activation control. Hyperdrive ready. As the first missile came within striking distance, Elliot activated the hyperdrive. The stars stretched into lines of light, and the Nomad vanished into hyperspace, leaving the missiles and the adjudicator behind. The artificial calm of hyperspace enveloped them, the tumultuous escape replaced by the steady hum of the engines and the surreal, stretched starfield visible through the viewports. Jump successful, Elliot confirmed, exhaling slowly as he leaned back in his seat. Course set for the Centauri sector border. We should arrive in approximately 6 hours. Nylara conducted a quick assessment of the ship's status. Hull integrity stabilized at 54%. Life support and essential systems functional. Hyperdrive operating at reduced efficiency, but within acceptable parameters. In other words, we're alive and still moving. Elliot summarized with a tired smile. Which is more than I expected about 10 minutes ago. Your piloting skills are impressive, Nylara acknowledged, settling into the co-pilot seat with a wince as her injuries reminded her of their presence. Few military pilots could have navigated that asteroid field so effectively. High praise coming from a Guardian, Elliot noted, running a diagnostic on the navigation system. Though I suspect your little spacewalk contributed significantly to our survival. A comfortable silence fell between them as the immediate danger passed, and the reality of their situation settled in. They had successfully diverted the consortium's attention, buying time for Elena's quantum transmission to reach its intended recipients. Now, they were heading toward the border between Athetherin and neutral space, where decisions about their next moves would need to be made. Do you think it worked? Elliot asked finally, voicing the question that had been in both their minds. The transmission. Do you think it reached the right people? Nylara considered the question carefully. The Imperial emergency frequencies are monitored continuously by dedicated communication officers. If the transmission was received, it would have been brought to the attention of the High Command immediately. But will they believe it? Will they act on it? That, Nylara acknowledged, is less certain. The evidence is compelling, but it contradicts generations of established policy and belief. Change rarely comes easily to empires. Elliot nodded thoughtfully. Same for the hegemony. I imagine. Krall seemed confident his contacts would take the information seriously. But entrenched powers resist uncomfortable truths, Nylara finished. Yes, it is the nature of all governments. Another silence fell. This one heavier with the weight of uncertainty. They had risked everything on the hope that truth would prevail over convenience, that leaders on both sides would choose to confront manipulation rather than continue along familiar paths. We should rest while we can, Elliot suggested finally. The consortium won't give up easily. Once we drop out of hyperspace, we'll need to be ready for whatever comes next. Nylara nodded in agreement, though her thoughts remained troubled. I will meditate in the cargo bay. The injuries require attention. As she rose to leave, Elliot's voice stopped her. Nylara, whatever happens when we reach the border, whether the transmission worked or not, I want you to know that I don't regret pulling you from that ocean. Not for a moment. Nylara turned, studying his face with her alien yet perceptive gaze. Nor do I regret being saved, Elliot Drake. It seems the convergence of our destinies may yet serve a greater purpose than either of us imagined. With that, she departed, leaving Elliot to monitor their hyperspace journey and ponder the strange paths that had brought a human healer and an Athetherin warrior together in a desperate mission to end a war. Neither had started, but both now sought to finish. The 6 hours in hyperspace passed in a blur of repair work, medical treatment, and preparation. Elliot had insisted on examining Nylara's injuries after her spacewalk, discovering that several had reopened during the exertion. Despite her stoic protests, he had applied fresh regenerative treatments and insisted she rest for at least part of their journey. Nylara had complied, recognizing the wisdom in preserving her strength for the challenges that likely awaited them. During her periods of meditation, she reflected on the extraordinary series of events that had led her from the acceptance of honorable death to this moment, fleeing corporate mercenaries with classified information that could potentially end generations of conflict. As the Nomad approached the end of its hyperspace journey, both Elliot and Nylara returned to the bridge, ready for whatever might await them in normal space. Preparing to exit hyperspace, Elliot announced, his hands moving over the controls with practiced efficiency. Destination, Centauri sector border. Neutral space side. All systems on standby for immediate evasive action if necessary. Scanning frequencies for any indication that our transmission was received and acted upon. Nylara added, monitoring the communication systems. The stars condensed from streaks of light back into distant points as the Nomad dropped out of hyperspace. The view screen showed a relatively empty sector of space, a buffer zone between Ethetheran territory and the neutral systems beyond. No immediate threats detected, Nylara reported, scanning the surrounding area. Though our sensors are operating at reduced capacity due to damage. Elliot frowned, studying the navigation display. Something's not right. There should be more traffic in this sector. Merchant vessels. Patrols from both sides of the border. Before Nylara could respond, the communication system activated, indicating an incoming transmission on a secure Imperial frequency. That's a Guardian Squadron emergency channel, she identified, surprise evident in her voice. Only senior commanders have access to those codes. With a questioning glance at Elliot, who nodded his agreement, she accepted the transmission. A holographic image formed above the console, an Ethetheran officer wearing the distinctive insignia of the Imperial High Command. Guardian Nylaranth, the officer greeted formally. Your survival is unexpected. Commander Talara, Nylara responded, recognizing her former superior with a mixture of relief and apprehension. I apologize for the irregular nature of my report. The commander's expression remained impassive in the Ethetheran way, but her tone conveyed a depth of meaning Nylara could interpret from long association. Your transmission was received and verified. The evidence has been most disturbing to the High Command. Nylara exchanged a quick glance with Elliot. Then you believe the information to be accurate. Our intelligence division has confirmed key elements independently, Commander Talara replied, though the full extent of the consortium's manipulation is still being investigated. Her gaze shifted to Elliot. You travel with unusual company. Guardian. Dr. Elliot Drake, Nylara introduced formally. He saved my life when my fighter was shot down over Terrace 3. Without his assistance, the evidence would never have reached the Empire. Commander Talara studied Elliot for a moment before responding. The Empire acknowledges your service, human, though the circumstances are unprecedented. What happens now, Commander? Nylara asked directly. Has there been any contact with the Dreylock hegemony regarding this matter? A subtle shift in Talara's posture suggested hesitation. That is partly why I have contacted you. Your transmission was indeed received by both our forces and the hegemony. After verification, both sides initiated high-level communication for the first time in 7 cycles. That's remarkable, Elliot observed, earning a sharp glance from the commander. Indeed, Talara acknowledged. A neutral meeting ground has been established in this sector. Representatives from both the Empire and the hegemony will convene to discuss the evidence and its implications. She paused, then added, Your presence has been requested. Guardian Nylara, as the one who brought this information forward, your testimony is considered valuable. Nylara straightened, her warrior's discipline asserting itself. I will attend, of course. When does this meeting convene? In 6 hours. Coordinates are being transmitted to your vessel now. Commander Talara's gaze shifted to Elliot once more. The human may accompany you, if he wishes. His perspective on the consortium's activities may prove useful. Before either could respond, a warning flashed on the tactical display. Commander, Nylara reported. We're detecting an approaching vessel. Preliminary identification suggests consortium security classification. They are persistent, Talara observed with what might have been grudging respect. Several of their vessels have been detected in nearby sectors, apparently searching for you. We'll need to evade them until the meeting, Elliot stated, already preparing the navigation systems. That will not be necessary, Commander Talara replied. An Imperial escort vessel is en route to your position. It will ensure your safe passage to the meeting coordinates. Her expression hardened slightly. The consortium has overreached. Both the Empire and the Hegemony have issued formal warnings against any interference with this diplomatic initiative. The Hegemony agreed to that? Nylara asked, unable to completely hide her surprise. As I said, Guardian, your evidence has changed certain calculations. With that cryptic remark, Commander Talara concluded. The escort will arrive within the hour. Maintain your current position and minimum power signature until then. Talara out. As the holographic image faded, Elliot and Nylara exchanged glances of cautious optimism. It worked, Elliot said quietly. They received the transmission, verified the evidence, and are actually talking to each other. It is unexpected, Nylara admitted. The Empire and the Hegemony have not engaged in direct diplomatic contact since before I joined the Guardian Corps. And they've specifically requested you to attend, Elliot pointed out. That's significant. They're acknowledging your role in this. Nylara's expression was contemplative. It is traditional for the bearer of important intelligence to present it personally to the High Command. Though in this case, the joint nature of the meeting is unprecedented. Elliot smiled slightly. We seem to be setting a lot of precedents lately. Indeed, Nylara agreed. Though whether they will lead to lasting change remains to be seen. As they waited for the Imperial escort, Elliot conducted what repairs he could to the Nomad's damaged systems, while Nylara prepared herself mentally for the diplomatic encounter ahead. The warrior, who had once sought honorable death, now found herself potentially at the center of a historic peace initiative, a role she had never trained for, yet one that might prove more significant than any battle she had fought. When the Imperial escort arrived, a sleek, powerful vessel bearing the distinctive markings of the Guardian Corps, Nylara felt an unexpected surge of emotion. These were her people, her comrades. Yet she returned to them transformed by her experiences, carrying a truth that challenged the very foundation of their ongoing conflict. The escort vessel positioned itself protectively alongside the Nomad, its commander acknowledging Nylara with the formal respect due a guardian of her rank. Together, they proceeded toward the coordinates of the diplomatic meeting, the damaged medical transport under the watchful protection of Imperial military might, a striking symbol of the unusual alliance that had brought them to this point. As they approached their destination, a space station came into view, a neutral diplomatic facility maintained by the Vespian Concord, known for their strict impartiality in interstellar affairs. Several vessels were already docked or holding position nearby, including the unmistakable angular shapes of Drelock military craft. Quite a gathering, Elliot observed, noting the diverse collection of ships. Imperial, Drelock, Vespian. And is that an Earth Alliance diplomatic vessel? It appears so, Nylara confirmed, studying the distinctive design. The evidence implicates certain Earth Consortium entities. It is logical that Alliance representatives would be present to address these allegations, or to distance themselves from the Consortium's actions, Elliot added cynically. The Alliance has always maintained that the Consortium operates independently, despite their obvious connections. As the Nomad and its escort approached the docking ring, Nylara found herself experiencing an unfamiliar sensation, uncertainty about her role and purpose. Throughout her military career, her path had been clear. Serve the Empire, defend against the Drelock threat, accept death when it came in battle. Now she stood at the threshold of a different kind of service, one that might require her to challenge the very conflict that had defined her existence. Having second thoughts? Elliot asked perceptively, noting her silence. Adjusting expectations, Nylara replied. I am a warrior, not a diplomat. This arena is unfamiliar. If it helps, Elliot offered. I think that's precisely why they want you there. You're not a politician or a career diplomat. You're a guardian who discovered an uncomfortable truth and chose to bring it forward, despite the personal risk. That carries weight. Nylara considered his words as the Nomad was guided into its assigned docking port. Perhaps, she acknowledged. Though I suspect the path ahead remains uncertain for both of us. Uncertainty has become our natural habitat, Elliot observed with a wry smile. At least we're getting good at navigating it. As they prepared to disembark, a final communication came through from the Imperial Escort Commander, providing details about the diplomatic protocols and security arrangements. The meeting would take place in the station's Central Council chamber, with representatives from all involved parties present. Security would be maintained by Vespian peacekeepers, ensuring neutrality. They're really doing this, Elliot remarked, as they made their way toward the airlock. A genuine high-level meeting between enemies who've been at war for generations. The evidence was compelling, Nylara reminded him. When manipulated by an outside force, even the most determined adversaries may find common cause. As the airlock cycled open, they were met by a Vespian official, whose iridescent exoskeleton gleamed under the station's lights. Guardian Nylaranth, Dr. Elliot Drake. The Vespian greeted them with formal precision. I am Coordinator Vexala. I will escort you to the council chamber. The meeting will commence in 1 standard hour. As they followed the Vespian through the station's pristine corridors, Nylara was acutely aware of the scrutiny they received from other personnel, a mixture of curiosity, suspicion, and, in some cases, what appeared to be respect. Word of their role in uncovering the consortium's manipulation had clearly spread. The evidence you provided has created quite a stir, Vexala commented as they walked. Both the Empire and the Hegemony have been conducting intensive investigations since receiving it. Their findings have converged in ways few would have predicted. Have representatives from the Earth Consortium been invited to respond to the allegations? Elliot asked. They were invited, the Vespian confirmed. They declined, citing baseless accusations and commercial confidentiality. Their absence has been noted with interest by all parties. They arrived at a preparation room adjacent to the main council chamber, where they would wait until the formal proceedings began. Through a viewing panel, they could see delegations arriving and taking their positions. Athetheran officials in their distinctive ceremonial armor. Drelock representatives with their characteristic ridge-marked features, Vespian mediators, and a small contingent from the Earth Alliance, looking somewhat uncomfortable amidst the gathering. When you are called, Vexala instructed, you will enter together. Guardian Nylara will present the evidence and her testimony first, followed by Dr. Drake if the council requests it. All questions will be directed through the Vespian chair to maintain order. As the Vespian departed to attend to other preparations, Elliot and Nylara found themselves alone in the quiet anteroom, the gravity of the moment settling around them. Whatever happens in there, Elliot said softly, we've already accomplished something important. They're talking instead of fighting. That's a start. Nylara nodded, her posture straight and dignified despite her recent injuries. A start, yes. Though the path to genuine peace will likely be long and complex. One step at a time, Elliot reminded her. That's how all journeys begin. When the summons finally came, they entered the council chamber together, the human healer and the Athetheran warrior, united by circumstance and choice in a mission neither could have imagined when their paths first crossed in the depths of an alien ocean. The chamber fell silent as they approached the central podium, all eyes focused on the unlikely pair. Nylara recognized Commander Talara among the Imperial delegation, her expression inscrutable, but her posture suggesting attention and perhaps a hint of pride. The Vespian chairperson formally opened the proceedings, acknowledging the historic nature of the gathering and the serious allegations to be addressed. Then, with a gesture toward Nylara, the chair invited her to present her testimony. Standing before representatives of empires that had been locked in deadly conflict for generations, Nylara spoke with the clear, direct manner of a guardian. She recounted the sequence of events that had led to the discovery of the consortium's manipulation, her near-death experience, rescue by Elliot, their encounter with Elena at the Vidian trading post, and the compelling evidence that had been gathered. As she spoke, holographic displays activated around the chamber, showing the key elements of evidence: financial records, technical schematics, intercepted communications, all pointing to the systematic manipulation of the conflict by Earth Consortium entities for profit and influence. The evidence indicates, Nylara concluded, that significant advancements in weaponry on both sides have been deliberately calibrated to maintain strategic balance, not to allow either side a decisive advantage. The conflict has been extended by design, at the cost of countless lives on both sides. A murmur ran through the chamber as she finished speaking, the delegates conferring among themselves. The Vespian chair allowed this for a moment before calling for questions. The first came from the Drelock delegation, a senior military commander whose battle scars suggested extensive combat experience. Guardian Nylara, you are a sworn enemy of the hegemony. Why should we believe that your actions are not part of an imperial deception? Nylara met the commander's gaze directly. I have fought against Drelock forces for 20 cycles. I have lost comrades and inflicted losses in return. I had accepted death in battle as my honorable fate. She gestured toward Elliot. When this human saved me against my will, I initially considered it a dishonor. But what followed, the discovery of how our conflict has been manipulated, presented a choice: remain loyal to a war built on deception, or honor a deeper truth. Her response seemed to satisfy the Drelock commander, who nodded slightly before withdrawing his question. An Ethetheran representative spoke next. The evidence suggests complicity at high levels within both our procurement systems. How deep does this corruption extend? The full extent remains under investigation, Commander Talara answered, taking over this portion of the inquiry. However, preliminary findings suggest that most officials were unaware of the consortium's true role. The deception was maintained through a complex network of shell corporations and seemingly independent suppliers. Questions continued for nearly 2 hours, with both Nylara and occasionally Elliot providing responses. Throughout the proceedings, Nylara observed a gradual but perceptible shift in the atmosphere, from initial skepticism and hostility to a growing sense of shared outrage at the manipulation both sides had endured. Finally, the Earth Alliance representative addressed the chamber, his discomfort evident. The Alliance wishes to make clear that the Earth Consortium, while based in our territory, operates as an independent corporate entity. Their actions, if proven as alleged, do not reflect Alliance policy or values. Yet they operated with impunity for cycles, a Drelock delegate pointed out sharply, using Alliance military technology and expertise. An investigation has been launched, the human assured them, though his confidence seemed forced. Those responsible will be held accountable. As the formal questioning concluded, the Vespian chair called for a recess before deliberations would begin on potential responses to the revelations. Nylara and Elliot were escorted back to the anteroom, where they could rest and refresh themselves while the delegations conferred. You were magnificent, Elliot told her once they were alone. Clear, direct, and honest, exactly what was needed. The evidence spoke for itself, Nylara replied modestly. I merely provided context. You provided more than that, Elliot insisted. You showed them what this manipulation has cost, not in abstract terms, but in the concrete reality of warriors and civilians who died for someone else's profit. Before Nylara could respond, the door opened to admit Commander Talara. The Imperial officer regarded them both for a moment before speaking. The High Command is Impressed with your presentation. Guardian Nylara, she stated formally. The clarity and thoroughness of your testimony has strengthened our position considerably. I merely fulfilled my duty to the Empire, Nylara responded automatically. Talara's expression softened slightly. A subtle change that only another Athetheran would likely notice. You did more than that. You challenged assumptions that have guided our strategic thinking for generations. That requires courage beyond the battlefield. She turned her attention to Elliot. The human contribution to this revelation has been noted as well. The Empire acknowledges its debt to you, Dr. Drake. I'm just glad the truth is finally being addressed, Elliot replied sincerely. Talara nodded, then returned her focus to Nylara. The delegations are considering a joint declaration condemning the consortium's actions and announcing a temporary cessation of hostilities, while further investigation proceeds. A ceasefire? Nylara asked, unable to completely mask her surprise. Provisional, Talara clarified. But yes, for the first time in living memory. She paused, studying Nylara with an assessing gaze. Your experience gives you a unique perspective on this situation. The High Command would value your continued involvement as we navigate these unprecedented circumstances. Nylara blinked, her inner eyelids flickering briefly in the Athetheran expression of astonishment. My continued involvement? In what capacity? That remains to be determined, Talara replied. But your demonstrated ability to work effectively with diverse allies could prove valuable in the coming transition. With that cryptic remark, the commander excused herself to return to the deliberations, leaving Nylara and Elliot to contemplate her words. Did I just hear an Imperial commander suggest that your future might involve diplomatic rather than military service? Elliot asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. It would seem so, Nylara acknowledged, her tone reflecting her own uncertainty about the prospect. Though how a warrior becomes a peacemaker is not a transformation our training prepares us for. Maybe that's the point, Elliot suggested. Sometimes the most effective advocates for peace are those who truly understand the cost of war. Before they could pursue this line of thought further, they were summoned back to the council chamber. The atmosphere had changed notably. A sense of cautious purpose had replaced the earlier tension and suspicion. The Vespian chair called the session to order and announced that the delegations had reached a preliminary agreement. A joint declaration would be issued, condemning the consortium's manipulation and announcing a 3-month cessation of hostilities to allow for thorough investigation and diplomatic engagement. This is not peace, the chair emphasized, looking around the chamber. But it is perhaps the first step on a path that has been closed for generations. As the details of the agreement were formalized, Nylara found herself experiencing an unfamiliar emotion, hope, not for a glorious death in battle, but for a future where her skills might serve life rather than end it. When the proceedings concluded, she and Elliot were approached by representatives from both the Imperial and Hegemony delegations, each expressing their respective government's interest in continuing consultation as the investigation and diplomatic process unfolded. It seems we've become valuable assets, Elliot observed wryly as they finally made their way back toward the docking bay where the nomad awaited. The human who saved an alien warrior and the warrior who chose truth over tradition. Assets with uncertain futures, Nylara noted, though without the trepidation such uncertainty might once have caused her. The path ahead is undefined. Elliot smiled, a genuine warmth in his expression. That's the thing about paths. They're made by walking them. He gestured toward the viewport, where the stars shone against the backdrop of space. So, Guardian Nylara, formerly of the Athetheran Empire, where shall we walk next? Nylara considered the question, her gaze taking in the vast expanse beyond the station, a universe of possibilities she had never allowed herself to contemplate while focused solely on the warrior's path. "I believe," she said finally, "that there is much work to be done in ensuring this temporary ceasefire becomes something more enduring. The consortium will not abandon its profitable enterprise without resistance." "So we continue what we started," Elliot nodded. "Uncovering the truth, supporting those who want genuine change. If you are willing to continue this journey," Nylara acknowledged, recognizing that their paths, once accidentally converged, now seemed interwoven by choice as well as circumstance. "I saved your life once," Elliot reminded her with a smile. "It would be a shame to abandon the project, now that it's getting interesting." As they reached the Nomad, Nylara paused, looking back at the diplomatic station where history had begun to shift course. The warrior who had accepted death with honor now found herself embracing life with purpose, a transformation as unexpected as it was profound. "Nasheri," she murmured, the Ethetheran concept of converging destinies seeming more relevant than ever. "Nasheri," Elliot repeated, the alien word now familiar on his tongue. "The convergence of destinies." He gestured toward the Nomad's hatchway. "Shall we see where ours leads next?" Together, they boarded the vessel that had become both their sanctuary and their means of forging a new path, not as enemies or even reluctant allies, but as partners in a mission neither could have imagined when fate first brought them together in the depths of an alien ocean. As the Nomad detached from the station and moved into open space, Nylara felt a sense of rightness that transcended her warrior training and cultural conditioning. The honorable death she had once accepted had been denied her, but in its place, she had found something perhaps more valuable, an honorable purpose. The stars stretched before them, no longer battlefield markers, but beacons of possibility. Whatever challenges awaited, from consortium resistance to the deeply ingrained mistrust between empires, they would face them together. The human healer and the alien warrior, bound by choice and circumstance in a shared destiny neither could have foreseen. And in that moment, as the Nomad accelerated toward an uncertain but hopeful future, Nylara acknowledged a truth that would have once seemed impossible. Sometimes, the most honorable path was not the one that ended in glorious death, but the one that continued on through uncharted territory, guided by truth and compassion rather than tradition and conflict. It was a new kind of honor, one she was only beginning to understand, but one she found herself increasingly willing to embrace.